Hey everyone, Sindhu here. So today I'm going to touch on the topic of colorism, the idea that lighter and whiter skin is more attractive and more beautiful than darker skin. And colorism is prevalent in cultures and countries around the globe, specifically so in Indian communities, both here in the United States and also back in India itself. And in the last few years, I've seen a lot of South Asian Instagram influencers and beauty bloggers and companies like Tinted call out and challenge colorism. And I'm so happy that this conversation is being had because it works to challenge the Eurocentric beauty standards that currently exist today. I think that diversifying beauty is important, but I talk about colorism for a different reason, and that's to challenge and resist racist ideas and also whiteness and white supremacy that are so prevalent in today's society. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into the topic of colorism, and I'm going to look at the history of how it began in the homeland in India and why it continues to persist today in the United States. So contrary to popular belief, colorism existed in India well before the British rule. Colorism is actually a product of classism in India. And the idea is that wealthier families were able to stay inside and not be outside in the fields doing work in the farms like low income and poor Indian families. And so the people of lower income and lower social classes had darker skin. And there's been a long-standing preference in India for wealthier skin, and that has created a divide and differentiate people within India. But it was in existence before the British rule. However, the British rule took it to another level. So the British didn't just colonize our land, they colonized our culture and also our minds, influencing Indians to desire a Eurocentric and Aryan beauty standard. And hundreds and hundreds of years later, this stands very much true today. Thanks to colonization and Western imperialization and now globalization, Indians still prefer a lighter and whiter skin tone. And colorism on its own has helped to fund and I would say keep afloat the multi-billion-dollar industry of skin lightening that exists not just in India but all over Asia and in other parts of the world too. So how has this toxic age-old mentality that lighter and whiter skin is more attractive survived from the homeland all the way here to the United States? Well, we can thank white supremacy, or the idea that white people are genetically superior than people of color, and also slavery for today's persistence and existence of colorism in Indian and South Asian communities today. So slavery played a huge role in perpetuating skin color hierarchies in the United States. During the time of slavery, lighter skinned slaves oftentimes tended to be more privileged, being assigned to household duties and duties that were inside the house and less laborsome. And that was because a lot of times those slaves were the offspring of the slave owners. So the darker skinned slaves had to be outdoors and doing the more hard labor. But the skin color hierarchy didn't end with slavery. Post-slavery, light-skinned African Americans continued to receive privileges in the form of better jobs, better paying jobs, and they were able to gain wealth and build social mobility in ways that their darker-skinned counterparts could not. Racist ideas were so deeply embedded into the fabric of this country that African American people began to discriminate against each other based off skin color. In the early 1900s, it's well documented that there was something called the brown paper bag test. And that was that in some black churches, fraternities, and even parties, you had to be lighter than this brown paper bag in order to be welcomed and included. And if you were darker, then you were rejected. So it's a sad, reality and example of how whiteness infiltrates communities of color. So because skin color discrimination was so deeply embedded within Black communities, by the time that Indian immigrants started to arrive post-1965, it wasn't so hard to continue the idea that lighter and whiter skin was more attractive. And so the idea and the thought of colorism continued in Indian communities up until today. And today they continue to survive due to white supremacy and racist ideas that a lot of us subconsciously hold. So I'm the daughter of Malayali immigrants, and for those of you who don't know, Malayalis are from South India and Kerala, and we tend to be of the darkest Indians. And regardless of that, colorism is very much well and alive in my own Indian community here in the United States. And it's a shame because what it does is it works to shame and isolate our own darker skinned brothers and sisters. And if I just think about my childhood and my upbringing and even going to family parties today, I can hear instances of colorism. And I'll just give you a couple of examples from my childhood, from my mom and my aunts telling me that I spent too much time in the sun and that I need to spend more time inside, to my own Indian girlfriends wearing floppy hats and or long sleeves to the beach or on a hike because they don't want their skin to get too dark, to light-skinned newborn babies being gushed over while dark-skinned newborn babies receive radio silence about their appearance, to every single Malayali cinema star that I knew growing up being very fair-skinned, to overhearing my aunts talk about a potential suitable wife for my cousin when he was being arranged, and hearing that she was not suitable because she was too dark. Right? So we communicate these messages that lighter and whiter skin is better, and we're going to continue to do that until we disrupt this cycle. We have to be consciously unbiased and reject colorism in order for us to really be inclusive of everyone in our own South Asian communities. So let's collectively work together as a community to call out colorism, because when we do so, not only are we working to be inclusive and diversify beauty standards, but we're also rejecting racism and dismantling whiteness. So that's all I have to say about that topic. If you have any questions or if you want to add anything to the conversation, feel free to connect with me. You can find my information on my website, shaktitraining.com. Thanks.